morning, everyone. Welcome to HANA's second quarter review. So, second quarter came in with operating profits of 592, down 22% from last year, but up 54% from the last quarter. You can see from the chart we have a strong recovery in the second quarter. Year on year, sales were up in baht terms 5%, but operating profits dropped from last year by 22%, from 759 to 592. Margins dropped 4%, but we still generated EBITDA of 974 million. Net profit after tax was 245 million, down from 737 due to large foreign exchange losses, which I will talk about later on. Our net cash and short-term investments dropped 50% from a year ago, from 9 billion to 4.5 billion, as we invest heavily in our expansion, especially in Korea. On a quarterly basis, our sales were up 5%, operating profits up 54%, margins up from 6 to 9%, and EBITDA increased 31%. Moving on to our main operations in HANA Lamphun, sales were down 3% year on year and down 5.7% over the quarter. Our automotive business was quite strong, but we saw drops in PC, commercial, consumer, and medical. Our industrial business was stable. Material shortages were improving, but we still see problems with certain capacities like chip caps, ICs, and resistors. The COVID situation is now stable, and this allows our customers to visit, which is very positive. And going forward, I think everyone is concerned about recession and looking very closely at inventory management. Moving on to China, as you may remember, in Shanghai, there was a lockdown during the second quarter, and we thought we were going to be impacted, but we made a strong recovery in June, and our sales were up year on year by 16% and 18% over the quarter. So we saw access control business recovering. This is relating to hospitality, which of course during the pandemic was very weak, but now starting to improve as people start to travel. The third quarter outlook again remains weak due to consumer and industrials and a focus on inventory management. We still see certain shortages in ICs, but we think this could extend to the end of the year, but I think it will improve over the course of the second half. If we look at auto sales in the US, you can see that in 2022, there is a drop. It's the blue line compared to the gray line. But last year, the sales were exceptionally high because of the COVID situation. So I would say the volumes this year are more normalized, and car companies are focusing on high cost units because they still have problems getting material. So their profitability is still good, even though the number of units are dropping. And you can see that many of the major car companies reporting very strong profits in the second quarter because of their focus on high-end models. However, the growth of EV continues to be very strong, and every auto company that is introducing their EV line is sold out, and there's a long waiting list for EV cars. So this really is picking up. Moving on to PC. The PC business has been in decline probably for the past 10 years, but during the COVID period, we saw strong increases because everyone stayed home, children had to work from home. So PC shipments increased substantially over the COVID period. However, as we move into a post-COVID situation, there was a sharp decline, and we saw the sharpest drop in 9 years in the second quarter, year on year, down 12.6%. Moving on to our OSAT business in Ayutthaya, sales were up 10% year on year and 30% quarter on quarter. Our standard IC and custom devices and hybrids all grew marginally, but we start to see a drop in mobile. The mobile business is the one sector which is experiencing a correction due to problems in the war in Russia and Ukraine and the lockdowns in China. Industrial demand dropped, but we have a number of special arrangements with our customers which were negotiated a year ago. We call take or pay, and these type of deal help us to support and offset the drop in the mobile business. In the third quarter, we expect to see continued weakness in mobile, but our take or pay contractual deals will continue to support loadings. We have a new segment, MEMS silicon-based timing solutions and oscillators, which will start in the third quarter and will also help to offset the mobile weakness. And interestingly, our new product development continues to be very strong. Material lead time also starts to improve. Moving on to the IC business in Jiaxing, we saw a drop year on year of 1%, but a Q on Q sequential increase of 5.2%. In China, we have quite a large exposure to the Android mobile industry, and therefore we would see quite a significant drop going forward in this segment. That said, our non-standard assemblies for EV modules and LED projectors have performed very well and helping to offset the weakness in mobile. We have a new project, RFID inlay production. We have ordered equipment which will come by the end of the year, and we are building up order book, and it looks very positive. And we will start production in this in Q1, and I will talk about this when we move on to Ohio. Hello? Okay, sorry. The third quarter outlook remains weak due to the China mobile, but our non-standard modules continue to hold well. If we look at smartphone shipments, they dropped 9% in the second quarter, and Gartner's is revising the whole year down 7%. When we started looking at this, we had an increase projected of about 8 to 9%. So that's probably about a 15 to 16% drop because of the Ukraine war and the lockdown in China. Moving on to worldwide semiconductor revenues, we saw in June a 13% year-on-year increase, but you can see the red line starts to drop. And if we look at the month-on-month, we see a drop of nearly 2%, and the 3-month rolling average is only up 0.5%. So the rate of growth is definitely slowing as people get concerned about a recession coming forward. Now, what you need to understand is that the semiconductor industry is very large, and there are many sections within it. So some sections like memory and logic relating to PC, gaming, and crypto are down. Okay, mobile also and consumer are also down, but automotive remains strong, driven by the shortage in many components and big demand in cars, and also the conversion of combustion engine ICE cars to EV cars. RFID chips are still on allocation. So this is a good example of certain industries which are still performing well, while other industries in the semiconductor area not performing well. When we look at our average million wire bonders a quarter, it was quite flat. The blue is a UTR, so similar to Q1, but the red is down because of the exposure to the mobile drop. Moving on to Ohio, our sales increased 24% year on year and 18% quarter on quarter. Our telecom and micro activities increased. However, our tire tag business dropped slightly due to product mix. Our inlay business, which is the tire tag, which is the tags we are expanding in China, grew 12% quarter on quarter, and we would have done more had we had more chips to produce. And we now have over 400 million unit order backlog, for which half is scheduled to ship in this year and half next year. And our China bookings demand is in excess of 200 million. So when China factory starts, we can start delivering in Q1 next year. As a result of this expansion, we have bought a new factory which will double the size of our area in the US, costing about $7.75 million, and we are going to relocate there during the course of the second half. And here is a picture of the new location. We're already in the blue area, and we will renovate the green area during the course of the second half. The red area we will rent out and use it in the future as we expand. HANA Ohio is the world's leading producer of RFID tire tags, and this business will definitely expand. And we have an association with Michelin, and we are bringing in other customers like Continental and Bridgestone. The RFID tags will be the main driver for Ohio and will also support Shanghai moving forward. All the major retailers in the world, like Walmart, Target, Kohl's, will use these active tags. Moving on to Cambodia, sales year on year were up 21%, but down about the same in the quarter. The main business currently in Cambodia is our remote control, and this business starts to get weak as people stop staying at home after COVID. However, we have a new project, a new passive components, started mass production, and we're going to ramp up to 1 million a month by the year end. We have a special designed semi-automatic line developed by Lampoon, which will be installed in Cambodia, and this will increase beyond 1 million by the middle of next year, and we hope to break even at that time. In terms of product exposure, you can see telecom actually increased, but that's going to drop in the second half of this year. Autos were flat, industrial slightly more, opto was down, computer down quite a lot, RFID the same, and consumer up slightly. So a summary for the second quarter, we saw PC sales down 15%, mobile sales down 9%, and the semiconductor entire industry has been downgraded in terms of growth from 13.6 to 7.4, and we expect further downgrades to follow. HANA's second quarter performance was held up well, supported by stronger US dollar and sector diversification and a good focus on productivity. A quick recovery from the China lockdowns also helped us to perform well in the second quarter, and our contractual arrangements in the UTIA help offset the weakness in the mobile sector. And automotive demand remains still strong as supply chain issues still persist. Looking ahead, we see gathering clouds. Everyone is concerned about a recession, and they're focused on the inventory management. Global PMIs are down. Sanctions due to Ukraine will continue. The Ukrainian war is expected to drag on well into next year, and that means energy costs will remain high and interest rates will remain high. Consumer spending, despite that, is held up relatively well, but we think that high inflation will start to cool demand. The Fed will probably raise interest rates further because they're still behind the inflation curve. China's zero COVID policy is still a risk because if they have another outbreak of COVID and lockdown again, this will cause a weakness in consumer demand, and the Chinese economy is already weak due to concerns over the housing industry, which has got a lot of problems. So overall, HANA's automotive demand remains firm, remains strong. The mobile is weak, will extend into Q4, and PC will start to lower because people are not buying PCs anymore as they move away from staying at home. We are accelerating our investments in automation because we expect a minimum wage increase to come by the end of this year, and therefore we want to focus on our productivity. So I would say, apart from the mobile sector, so far our order book is not seeing any significant drop, which is good news. US dollar strength will continue to support margins, but we do expect the Thai baht to strengthen because, as you know, the Bank of Thailand tightened 25 basis points and will probably increase further. And you can see from the chart, this is just today, it's come off its highs, but it starts to creep up, and now the baht's at around 36.20. Our financial situation, we generated 974 million baht, which was a decrease of 96 million baht year on year. Our net cash is around 4.5 billion, down from 9 billion, but still fairly strong balance sheet. We spent 600 million in the second quarter, down from 1.1 billion a year ago. Okay, and we're staying with our capital expenditure forecast of between 3.5 to 3.8, especially in our business in Korea. Let me move on to our silicon carbide business in Korea. So PowerMaster is the company, and sales were up 340%. Of course, last year were just very, very small sales. So we generated about 31 million baht in the second quarter. Year on year, our sales were down actually, and the reason is that we have been trying to get some outsourced capacity, but unfortunately not able to do so, and the China lockdowns as well. So because we failed to get the subcontract capacity, we were unable to support the demand that we have. The China lockdown also impacted our ability to travel and meet customers in the second quarter, but we hope this will improve in the second half of the year. So we start now to prepare the factory for equipment that's coming in, and during the third quarter, all the equipment will be delivered. So many of the machines are already in, and more will come, and we expect the completion by the end of this quarter. Right? We have hired more people. We now have about 140 staff in preparation for mass production. And we hope to start the mass production in the beginning of the fourth quarter, or maybe end of quarter three. We completed our silicon carbide Mosfet design. This is very, very important, and it has received very positive feedback from the market. Okay, now our design team are focusing on silicon medium voltage product lines and new versions for silicon carbide Mosfet. The silicon carbide Mosfet is a key driver for our company, and it's a very difficult product, and this is the one that's going to be in high demand for the EV car. Every EV car needs an inverter when you convert from DC to AC. And every inverter has 14 modules, and one module has a pack, and a pack needs a pair of silicon carbide diode and MOSFET. So on average, every EV car needs around 84 diodes and 84 MOSFETs. And as the EV car business grows, you will need a lot more of silicon carbide. EV car sales in the first half of this year grew 63%, of which 57% of the vehicles were sold in China. So China is the world's largest producer and consumer of EV cars, and we are focusing our efforts in China and of course in Korea, because we are a Korean company. In parallel, we have the packaging solutions to package the SiC devices, which will be done in our factory in Jiaxing and also in Lamphun, and we are preparing all the discrete and module capabilities to start ramping up early next year. So let me end there and open the floor for questions. So the second quarter, as I said in my presentation, we think is going to be weak because many customers are focusing on inventory, as they are very concerned about the impending recession at the same time.
คำถามนะคะจากที่ได้มานะคะถามว่ามองแนวโน้มผลการดำเนินงานครึ่งปีหลังอย่างไรและจะเติบโตต่อเนื่องจากครึ่งปีแรกได้หรือไม่นะคะคุณมิสเตอร์ริชาร์ดตอบว่ามองว่าครึ่งปีหลังน่าจะมีแนวโน้มที่จะอ่อนลงเพราะเนื่องจากว่าลูกค้าเรายังกังวลกับสินค้าคงคลังอยู่ค่ะ
Having said that, we are fortunate that we 5 years ago invested in silicon carbide, and we believe that the EV car growth will continue even if there is a big recession. So our investment in this will help us offset what may be, weakness because of a general recession. That industry and the RFID tag business is also going to grow even if we have a recession. So HANA has at least two segments which I think is going to continue not to be impacted by what everyone expects a recession to come sometime later this year or early next year.
แล้วก็คุณรุชัยก็บอกว่าโชคดีนะคะที่เราเมื่อ5ปีก่อนเราลงทุนซิลิคอนคาร์บายซึ่งอันนี้ก็ตามที่ได้พรีเซนต์ไปว่าจะใช้กับพวกรถไฟฟ้าEV car นะคะซึ่งเรามองเห็นแนวโน้มการเติบโตถึงแม้ว่าเศรษฐกิจโดยรวมอาจจะมีปัญหานะคะแล้วก็อีก business หนึ่งที่เรามีก็คือ RFID tag ซึ่งอันนี้ก็เราคาดว่ามันน่าจะยังเติบโตและไม่มีผลกระทบอะไรแม้ว่าเศรษฐกิจจะในภาพรวมเศรษฐกิจจะอ่อนแอลงนะคะ
So the other question is chip shortage in the first half. Will it continue in the second half? We see the chip situation improving, but again, it depends on the industry. I think for the automotive, the shortages will improve, but there will still be shortages throughout most of the second half of this year. We also see shortages in RFID chips. We are experiencing that ourselves. If we had more, we could build more. So I think the chip shortage in general is improving, but certain industries are still struggling.
คำถามถัดมานะคะเรื่องปัญหาชิปที่ขาดแคลนในครึ่งปีแรกยังจะเกิดขึ้นกับครึ่งปีหลังอยู่หรือไม่นะคะเรามองว่าครึ่งปีหลังเนี่ยก็ยังน่าจะมีปัญหาอยู่เช่นกันแต่ว่าก็แล้วแต่ส่วนของว่าเป็นอุตสาหกรรมอย่างอันไหนนะคะส่วนของ Automotive ก็มีแนวโน้มดีขึ้น RFID chip ก็น่าจะยังมีปัญหาภาพรวมจริงๆก็ยังจะมีปัญหาชิปขาดแคลนอยู่แต่ว่าเราก็จะผลิตเท่าที่เราสามารถหาชิปเข้ามาได้เราก็จะผลิตตามนั้นเลยค่ะคำถามต่อไปนะคะแป๊บนึงนะคะขาดทุนจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนจำนวนมากเกิดจากสาเหตุอะไรloss in exchange rate.
So the losses in exchange rate in the second quarter came from our general hedging activity as the Thai baht weakened. We gain on the hedge, we lose on the hedge, and we gain on the operation. But in the second quarter, we had what I would call a much larger exchange loss than usual when this happens. And the reason is, as we invest more heavily in our Korean factory, we are converting our US dollars into Korean won. Okay? And then the Korean won also weakened to the US dollar. So the overall exposure in foreign currencies to the US dollar increased. And that is why we had an exceptional loss in the exchange. But please understand, this is a non-cash item. And if, as we expect, the US dollar will weaken towards the end of the year, you will see this whole thing reversing.
สาเหตุการขาดทุนจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนนะคะใน Q2 ปีนี้สาเหตุเนื่องจากว่าเราไปใช้ใน hedge นะคะแต่ว่าเราก็มีเกณฑ์ที่ได้มาจากoperation ของเรานะคะส่วนแนวโน้มทิศทางของ Q3 ต่อไปเนี่ยเราไปลงทุนในPower Master ซึ่งเป็นบริษัทเกาหลีก็จะเป็น Korean Won นะคะซึ่ง Korean Won เนี่ยก็อ่อนค่าใน US ดอลลาร์นะคะแต่ว่าเราก็เห็นว่า US ดอลลาร์เนี่ยยังมีแนวโน้มจะลดลงอย่างต่อเนื่องเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยโดยภาพรวมเนี่ยบริษัทก็เกณฑ์ในส่วนของอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนอยู่แล้วค่ะโอเคนะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะ
So our business is not usually measured in terms of backlog, but what we can say in terms of, the outlook for the third quarter, the fourth quarter, let's talk about the third quarter, is that the orders being placed by our customers are similar to the levels apart from the mobile business as we experienced it in the second quarter. So whilst everyone is concerned about a recession coming, we have not seen any substantial, apart from mobile, drop in our order book.
ค่ะคำถามว่าปัจจุบันเนี่ยมีแบ็กหลอกประมาณเท่าไหร่ครึ่งปีหลังจะเข้ามาเพิ่มอีกหรือไม่ธุรกิจของเราไม่ได้วัดจากแบ็กหลอกนะคะแต่สิ่งที่เราเห็นเนี่ยจากเราประเมินจากคำสั่งซื้อโดยภาพตลาดอย่างเช่นโทรศัพท์มือถืออย่างเงี้ยนะคะโทรศัพท์มือถือเนี่ยเรามีแนวโน้มว่าถ้าเศรษฐกิจไม่ดีแนวโน้มของโทรศัพท์มือถือก็จะลดลงแต่ว่าเราก็มีธุรกิจจากทางอื่นที่เราไม่เห็นว่าจะมีปัญหาค่ะโอเคนะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะครึ่งปีหลังจะมีผลขาดทุนจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนหรือไม่
Well, the loss on the exchange rate will depend on the exchange rate. If the Thai baht strengthens compared to the closing of the second quarter, then we will have a gain. But if the Thai baht weakens from the closing of the second quarter, then there will be more loss.
คำตอบของเรื่องผลขาดทุนจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนนะคะมันจะมีว่าถ้าไทยบาทเนี่ยยังเป็นเหมือนควอเตอร์ที่ผ่านมาเราก็จะมีผลกำไรแต่ว่าถ้าไทยบาทไปในทางทิศทางกลับกันก็อาจจะมีผลกระทบได้ค่ะ
Please remember that the exchange loss is only a mark to market. It's not an actual loss. The loss or the gain will come when the contract between the company and the bank matures, which is ongoing all the time. So from the accounting point of view, the auditor just closes the book at the current rate at the end of the accounting period and measures that against the previous quarter accounting period. So it's not a cash item.
ค่ะก็ส่วนผลขาดทุนหรือกำไรจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนนะคะมันไม่ได้เป็นเงินสดจริงๆมันเป็นจากการที่จาก accounting book นะคะหมายถึงว่าการที่ทางในแนวโน้มของแนวทางของบัญชีที่ปิดแต่ละ quarter มา Next question this one
The outlook for Q3, as I mentioned earlier, our order book is similar, so a lot will depend on the exchange rate and the business coming in. As we see it, we don't see big growth coming because everyone is concerned about inventory and a recession coming, but we don't see any big drop either.
ค่ะแนวโน้มของควอเตอร์3ไตรมาสที่3นะคะของปีนี้ทิศทางเรามองเห็นว่าไม่มีปัญหาในการที่คำสั่งซื้อแต่ว่าลูกค้าเนี่ยค่อนข้างจะระมัดระวังนะคะเพราะเนื่องจากว่าต้องดู inventory หรือสินค้าคงคลังก่อนนะคะแต่ว่าโดยแนวโน้มก็ยังเป็นปกติอยู่ค่ะ
So moving on to a question on silicon carbide. So as I explained in my presentation, the machines are being installed during this quarter, and we shall see how our ramp up starts And if everything goes to plan, then our investment criteria should come out as planned. The one thing I can share with you is that all the devices that we have produced and sent out for samples have resulted in very strong interest. So today, the challenge for us is not to sell it, it's to make it. Okay? Please understand that building a wafer fab from the start is quite a difficult thing to do. And so that's what we're doing now. The factory is there, the machine's coming in, and we're starting. So the good news is that if we can get the production up, we have many customers waiting to buy our product.
คำถามที่9นะคะถามถึงเรื่องการลงทุนแล้วก็เราจะได้ผลตอบแทนของการลงทุนในส่วนของซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์ที่เกาหลีใน 3-5 ปีคำตอบของคุณริชาร์ดเนี่ยก็คือว่าสิ่งที่เราลงทุนในเกาหลีเนี่ยมันเป็นเรื่องทางธุรกิจระยะยาวที่เราวางแผนตอนนี้เราได้เครื่องจักรได้อะไรเข้ามาแล้วแต่ว่ามันจะต้องใช้เวลาเพราะเนื่องจากว่าส่วนธุรกิจส่วนนี้เป็น wafer fab ด้วยซึ่งมันจะใช้เวลานานกว่าธุรกิจส่วนอื่นนะคะแต่เราก็ยังมองเห็นว่าแนวโน้มเนี่ยเป็นไปในทิศทางที่ดีนะคะโอเคคำถามต่อไปนะคะแป๊บนึงนะคะ
So we expect our EV business to grow, of course, because of our silicon carbide investments. And it could easily be more than 10% of our group sales. 10 to 50%, I think, is achievable in the next 3 to 5 years.
คำถามนะคะอีก3ปีข้างหน้ารายได้จากธุรกิจ EV จะเป็นสัดส่วนกี่เปอร์เซ็นต์คำตอบของคุณริชาร์ดคือถ้าอีก3ปีข้างหน้าเรามองเห็นว่าน่าจะเป็นถึง 15% ของจาก revenue ของกลุ่มของเรานะคะ
Okay, so in terms of dividend, then obviously this is a decision for the board at the time, and we will, whenever we look at how much dividend we can afford to pay out, we look at what our cash needs are, how much cash we have, and the future, the future outlook for the business. So I can't give you any specific guidance about what kind of dividend we can pay, but we always, as you know, do our best to pay whatever we think is the right amount, both for the shareholder, but also to make sure that we have sufficient cash to support the growth and the investment needs of the company.
ค่ะส่วนข้อคำถามนะคะว่าส่วนของปันผลเนี่ยจะจ่ายยังไงคุณริชาร์ดตอบว่าเนี่ยปันผลจะจ่ายได้อย่างไรจะต้องดูที่สถานะเงินสดของบริษัทและแนวโน้มของทางธุรกิจนะคะเราจะบอกชัดเจนไม่ได้ว่าจะจ่ายเท่าไหร่แต่เราจะจ่ายให้เป็นจำนวนที่เราคิดว่าที่ดีที่สุดแต่ก็ยังคงเป็นมีเงินสดที่จะหมุนเวียนกับในธุรกิจของบริษัทด้วยค่ะมีคำถามเพิ่มเติมไหมคะ
can say a few things. So maybe I can say add a few things. I'm sure all of you are aware that with rising interest rates all around the world, this is going to affect growth. So every industry now is very worried about the future situation. คุณริชาร์ดเพิ่มเติมนะคะว่าเรื่องของ
ดอกเบี้ยที่เพิ่มขึ้นเนี่ยน่าจะมีผลที่ทำให้ธุรกิจทั้งหลายทั่วโลกนะคะมีผลกระทบค่ะ
At the same time, we see a lot of rising tension between China and the West.
แล้วก็เราก็ยังมองเห็นระหว่างจีนกับสหรัฐอเมริกาที่มีปัญหาระหว่างกันและกันอยู่นะคะ
A lot of Western companies are looking at their supply chain strategy.
ค่ะแล้วก็บริษัททางยุโรปหรืออเมริกาก็กำลังต้องมองหาsupply chain การmaterial ทั้งหลายที่จะต้อง supply เข้ามาในธุรกิจของเขานะคะ
And whilst I can say that in the short term it's impossible to move away from China, many Western companies are making plans to reduce their dependency on China.
ค่ะก็ถ้าในระยะสั้นเนี่ยบริษัททางฝั่งตะวันตกก็ยังจะต้องทำธุรกิจกับจีนอยู่แต่ว่าในระยะยาวบริษัทเหล่านี้ก็วางแผนที่จะต้องลดสัดส่วนของเนี่ย supply chain กับจีนลงไปค่ะ
So this is an opportunity for the ASEAN region where we can take up some of that capacity which we believe over time will start to move away from China.
ค่ะแต่แล้วอันนี้ก็เป็นโอกาสที่ดีของบริษัทที่อยู่ในภูมิภาคทางเอเชียของเราที่นอกจากจีนเนี่ยเพื่อว่าเราจะได้สัดส่วนแบ่งที่จะเป็น supply chain ให้บริษัททางตะวันตกนะคะ
This is not going to offset a recession that may come sometime later this year or early next year, but it is more of a longer term repositioning that I think will benefit companies in the ASEAN region.
ค่ะอันนี้ไม่ได้เป็นผลกับถ้าเศรษฐกิจแนวโน้มเศรษฐกิจที่จะในระยะสั้นที่เรามองเห็นว่าอาจจะเศรษฐกิจอาจจะตกลงไปนะคะแต่ว่าในระยะยาวเนี่ยเรามองเห็นว่ามันเป็นโอกาสที่ดีสำหรับบริษัทที่อยู่ในภูมิภาคทางเอเชียของเราที่จะได้ธุรกิจจากประเทศฝั่งตะวันตกมานะคะ
So moving back to the the short term, so the rest of this year and next year, we believe that the world will go into either recession or a much lower rate of growth, and we need to make sure that we are positioned appropriately to get us through what may be a difficult time for everybody.
ค่ะและระหว่างปีนี้นะคะปีนี้และถึงปีหน้าเนี่ยทั่วโลกคาดว่าจะเผชิญกับปัญหาเศรษฐกิจตกต่ำนะคะแล้วก็อาจจะเติบโตอย่างช้ามากแต่อย่างไรก็ตามเนี่ยต่อไปเนี่ยเรามองเห็นว่าเป็นโอกาสที่ดีว่าถ้าประเทศฝั่งตะวันตกเนี่ยมองจะพิจารณาที่จะมาใช้บริษัทที่อยู่ในภูมิภาคเอเชียนะคะในการที่จะเป็น supply chain ของเขาต่อไปค่ะ
So despite our net cash position dropping substantially, we still are in a very comfortable financial position as we enter what we think will be a difficult near-term situation.
ในสัดส่วนของเงินสดคงคลังที่เรามีนะคะถึงเราจะไปลงทุนอยู่บ้างแต่ว่าเราก็ยังอยู่ในสถานการณ์ที่ยังมั่นคงนะคะและเราก็พร้อมที่จะเผชิญกับเศรษฐกิจที่มองเห็นว่าจะเป็นเศรษฐกิจตกต่ำเราก็เตรียมตัวอย่างพร้อมอย่างดีค่ะ
And we are now focusing and putting a lot of effort to ramp up the mass production in Korea because if we can do that successfully, we have at least one very big product line that can support the overall weakness that may happen due to what everybody thinks is going to be a recession in the next 18 months or so.
ค่ะแล้วเราก็คาดว่าถ้าการรายการผลิตของที่เกาหลีนะคะเริ่มได้แล้วก็เราจะสามารถที่จะเพิ่มยอดเซลล์ของเราเข้าไปได้นะคะจากสัดส่วนของทางPMS Power Master ที่เกาหลีค่ะ
Any last questions?
มีคำถามเพิ่มเติมไหมคะไม่มีแล้วใช่ไหมคะมีคำถามเพิ่มอีกไหมคะ
More questions. Thank you very much for dialing in. I hope you found our presentation useful and give some outlook for the future. I still, despite all the concerns of recession coming, I remain quite optimistic that we have a long-term growth future. And we are in the right industries at the right time. So strategically, I think we're very well positioned, even though we will, like many other companies, have to go through some difficult economic times.
ค่ะสุดท้ายนี้นะคะทางบริษัทขอขอบคุณทุกท่านที่เข้ามารับฟังนะคะการ present Q2 ผลประกอบการของบริษัทนะคะเรามั่นใจว่าในระยะยาวเนี่ยบริษัทเราจะมีแนวโน้มที่ดีถึงแม้ว่าใกล้ๆนี้อาจจะต้องเผชิญกับภาวะเศรษฐกิจตกต่ำที่อาจจะเกิดขึ้นทั่วโลกแต่เราอยู่ในสถานการณ์ที่เราคิดว่าเราทำธุรกิจที่เหมาะสมและทำธุรกิจที่จะเป็นจังหวะและโอกาสที่ดีนะคะที่เราจะเป็นการเติบโตและเป็นอนาคตของบริษัทค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณมากครับ